Christopher Nolan didn't just make a film about the creator of the atomic bomb, Robert Oppenheimer. He also turned it into a documentary, with much more truth than in 90% of full-fledged Netflix documentaries featuring dark-skinned Cleopatras and cannibals. Nevertheless, the film is still a film, and some details of real history in Oppenheimer are blurred, some are left unsaid, and some are corrected. So, in the next couple of minutes, we will compare Nolan's film with real events. If you haven't seen it yet, don't worry. Our video is unlikely to reveal any serious spoilers. On the contrary, it will prepare you for the premiere. Here in the scientist's biography, we will briefly stop. He was born in 1904 in New York. For the sake of drama, the film forgets about Robert's family. But Oppenheimer's parents were very wealthy enough to hush up the case of the poisoned apple that Robert placed under his mentor, Patrick Blackett. The relationship between the scientists didn't go well, and the film depicts this moment excellently. Oppenheimer really didn't like working in the laboratory from a young age, preferring theoretical physics and expansive thinking. This led to criticism from Blackett, prompting the hot-headed student Oppenheimer to offer him a poisoned apple. In the film, to preserve a positive image, Robert eventually takes the apple back and no one finds out. But in reality, there was quite a scandal, and the future creator of the atomic bomb's parents had to spend a lot of money to avoid a prison sentence and visits to a psychiatrist. Oppenheimer really needed the psychiatrist, as all his friends noted his self-destructive tendencies. Robert smoked a lot, often forgot to eat, and was prone to depression. The film portrays this aspect excellently. However, the film doesn't particularly emphasize Oppenheimer's scientific achievements. They make jokes about his lack of a Nobel Prize, call him a politician and a man who has forgotten about science. While no one disputes the scientist's genius, Christopher Nolan doesn't focus on Robert's achievements. Yet, there were plenty of achievements even before joining the Manhattan Project. Oppenheimer calculated the probabilities of quantum transitions, co-authored one of the most cited articles in the history of science on the quantum motion of molecules with Max Born, and also predicted the existence of the positron. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize 3 times, but primarily missed out for political reasons. However, in the eyes of most scientists, the Nobel Prize would have been in Oppenheimer's pocket for his prediction of gravitational collapse, after which stars turn into neutron stars or black holes. He was nominated for the main scientific award on the planet, the Robert A. Ashe Thrice, but mostly missed it for political reasons. However, according to most scientists, the Nobel would have been in Oppenheimer's pocket for predicting gravitational collapse. Unfortunately, the scientist looked too far into the future and the phenomenon was proven after his death. In general, one should not underestimate Robert's genius in the scientific field. His inclusion in the Manhattan Project was no coincidence, and the city in the desert for creating the atomic bomb was indeed built. Los Alamos, at its peak, had 75,000 residents. Another 15 were located nearby. The construction of the atomic bomb was an incredibly massive project. Bars, stores, schools, and all the necessary infrastructure were built in the city, which Christopher Nolan built entirely for the filming right near the real Los Alamos. According to Matt Damon, you could even live there. When the camera was rolling, the actors themselves chose where to stand, which building to shoot the scene at, and where to take a stroll. In general, there is maximum realism here. By the way, Matt Damon plays General Leslie Groves. It was he, not Oppenheimer, who was the head of the Manhattan Project. Oppenheimer was only the head of the scientific department, but all decisions were made by Groves. This is related to an amusing story because initially, the project to create the atomic bomb was assigned to the military, and accordingly, all scientists were planned to be given officer positions. That's why Robert Oppenheimer even ordered a colonel's uniform for himself and wore it once. Later, they abandoned the idea, but the film has a scene with Oppenheimer in uniform, although its context is not explained as thoroughly as we have done. During his time at Los Alamos, Robert became a legend. He managed to navigate among scientists with different political and scientific views, understood issues from quantum mechanics to pipeline construction, and became the ideal leader. earning respect even from those whose views did not align with Oppenheimer's. In most cases, the disagreements among the Manhattan Project workers revolved around the use of atomic bombs and the creation of more powerful ones. This is depicted in the film in the finest detail. Firstly, it shows that at the initial stages of World War II, all scientists generally agreed on the necessity of creating such weapons. After all, the legendary Werner Heisenberg was working for Germany. Secondly, the film does an excellent job of depicting hawks like Edward Teller, who wanted to start developing a more powerful hydrogen bomb almost immediately after the atomic bomb. The Teller portrayed in the film will be awarded the title of Father of the Hydrogen Bomb in 1952. Thirdly, Oppenheimer does an excellent job of showing the moment when American scientists stopped believing that the Germans would develop the bomb faster. They listened to intelligence data, claiming that Germany is using heavy water as a moderator, after which they relax and declare that the Germans are heading in the wrong direction, which is entirely correct. In 1939, Germany was ahead of everyone on the planet by a year and a half in terms of atomic weapons. However, for economic reasons, they chose heavy water as one of the components, rather than graphite. This was a mistaken path that the Americans had already tried and knew about for a long time. Therefore, everyone knew that Germany would not have nuclear bombs by the end of World War II. This led to extra tensions within the team because many believed that if Pandora's box were to be opened, they should not even be involved. After all, there was a non-zero probability that the detonation of an atomic bomb could trigger a chain reaction and turn the Earth into a mini-sun that would burn out. This is something that Oppenheimer asks Einstein about in the film, and it is indeed true. Until the detonation of the first Trinity bomb, the chance of such an outcome was considered small, but not zero. Later, Edward Teller calculated that it was actually zero, but by that time, Oppenheimer had already shifted towards advocating for the restraint of nuclear potential. A minor conflict between the two men ensues, which is also depicted excellently in the film. Also, the film portrays Robert Oppenheimer's murky relationship with the Communist Party. He did indeed marry Kitty Puning, who had been a party member but left due to ideological convictions. He also had a romantic involvement with Jane Tetlak, a staunch communist with mental health issues. In addition to this, Oppenheimer donated money to the Republicans who were fighting against the fascists in the Spanish Civil War. They mentioned this in a separate video, and it doesn't seem to be anything illegal. However, there is a nuance here because the Spanish Republicans were primarily supported by communists. We all remember how they were viewed in the United States after World War II. In this light, Oppenheimer's ties to the Communist Party later played a nasty trick on him. But before that, he tried to use his authority and popularity for the benefit of humanity. As an advisor to the Atomic Energy Commission, Robert insisted that the United Nations create a supranational body that would control all nuclear facilities on the planet and ensure their use only for energy purposes. Naturally, due to mutual suspicions between the United States and the USSR, the project had no future. There is, however, another nuance that the film does not emphasize. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Oppenheimer did not turn into a pacifist. He continued to create tactical nuclear bombs for the US Army and spoke very positively about Edward Teller's work on the hydrogen bomb. He did express concerns about its power, which is shown in the film. The film creates the impression that Robert was condemned because of these reasons. In reality, the reason for the political persecution of Oppenheimer was a simple feud between the parties. The hydrogen bomb was being created for the Air Force. Oppenheimer worked for the Army, and both organizations had their lobbies in the government, competing for funding and so on. This is where Lewis Strauss, who is portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. in the film, comes into play. He had personal grievances against Oppenheimer related to political statements. And there was also envy, because Strauss also dreamed of becoming a recognized scientist. So they brought up Robert's ties to communists, his strange position on the hydrogen bomb, as well as his emotional instability and unstable psyche. They revoked Oppenheimer's security clearance, de facto depriving him of the means of livelihood in the government sector, which caused quite a storm in the scientific community. The creators of the hydrogen bomb, like Edward Teller, essentially condemned him to a lifelong boycott for his testimony against Oppenheimer. Strauss was not given a place in the government, and Werner von Braun openly joked that in Britain Robert would have been knighted rather than put on trial. On May 20, 2009, declassified documents from U.S. intelligence agencies were presented at the Woodrow Wilson Institute. They acknowledged attempts to recruit Oppenheimer, but noted that none of them had been successful. Despite having many communist acquaintances, Robert did not betray the United States. Furthermore, it was revealed that while working on the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer had also dismissed several hidden communists without telling anyone about their political beliefs, so as not to ruin the scientists' careers. In general, whether in the film or in the scientific community, after the scandalous 1954 case, Robert Oppenheimer carries the title of a martyr. However, it is worth noting that during closed interrogations, the scientist actively shared the names of communist scientists. And had his fate turned out differently, if the government had acquitted him, Kemmer would have gone down in history as someone who cooperated with the intelligence agencies. History is rarely black or white. As for Robert himself, he was diagnosed with throat cancer in 1965. Unfortunately, self-destruction did not lead the scientist to a good place. In 1967, despite numerous attempts at treatment, he fell into a coma and died, leaving behind a contradictory but incredibly interesting investigation. It's great that one of the best modern directors made a film about him. Moreover, he made it so meticulously that documentary filmmakers should learn from it.